My dear friend, there is a reason this message has found its way to you today. Out of countless directions your attention could have taken, you arrived here at this precise moment. That is not something to dismiss lightly. Beneath the surface of everyday life, something important has been quietly developing, and the person you love has been carrying an understanding about this woman for much longer than anyone realizes. Before assumptions begin filling the gaps, listen carefully. This is not the story most people would expect. It is not built on fear, betrayal, or the conclusions that usually come to mind. Instead, it reaches into something deeper, something more meaningful, and perhaps far more surprising than anyone anticipated. Stay with this message until the end. A significant piece of the story is about to come into focus. For quite some time you have probably sensed that something felt different. Not necessarily troubling, but undeniably different. There were moments when the person you love appeared ready to say something important, only to stop before the words could emerge. There were unusual pauses, thoughtful glances, and fleeting expressions that seemed to disappear as quickly as they arrived. You noticed these things because your intuition has been paying attention. Somewhere within, you felt there was another layer to the story, a chapter that had not yet been revealed. Even without clear answers, your heart recognized that something remained unspoken. Now that hidden chapter is beginning to unfold. The surprising truth is that this silence was never created to keep you away. The person you love was not withholding information to create confusion or distance. In reality, they were trying to understand the situation themselves. Life sometimes places people in circumstances they never expected to face. Information appears before its meaning becomes clear. Emotions develop before words can explain them. When that happens, many people remain quiet while they sort through what they are feeling and understanding. That is why this story has remained unfinished for so long. There is a connection involving this woman that reaches far beyond what anyone originally imagined. What once appeared to be a minor detail slowly revealed itself to be something much more significant. Over time, questions seemed to circle back to it. Strange feelings pointed toward it. Unanswered mysteries quietly revolved around it. The person you love gradually began realizing that this connection carried a meaning that had gone unnoticed by everyone else. And once that realization took hold, silence felt easier than explaining something they were still trying to comprehend. Perhaps the most remarkable part is that the signs have always been present. Think back to moments that felt oddly significant. Recall situations that seemed perfectly timed in ways that were difficult to explain. Remember those occasions when something inside urged you to pay attention, even though you could not understand why. Those moments were not meaningless. They were pieces of a much larger picture. One by one, they have been guiding you toward an understanding that is now drawing closer than ever before. The answers you have been searching for are not distant. In many ways, they may already be moving toward you. What comes next has the potential to reshape your understanding of everything that has happened so far. The person you love is approaching a point where honesty feels unavoidable. Unspoken words become heavier with time. The desire to explain grows stronger. The need to reveal what has remained hidden becomes harder to resist. And when that moment finally arrives, you may discover that the truth looks nothing like the assumptions that once occupied your mind. What appeared mysterious may reveal itself as meaningful. What seemed confusing may prove to have a purpose. What felt hidden may simply have been waiting for the right moment to emerge. The next phase of this story contains a revelation few would ever predict. A missing piece is preparing to slide into place. Connections that once seemed unrelated will begin to align. Events that never made sense before may suddenly become clear. The person you love has been carrying a private truth connected to this woman. But the time is approaching when that truth can no longer remain beneath the surface. Once it emerges, everything may be viewed through an entirely different lens, and that moment is closer than it appears. There are times in life when a single discovery changes the meaning of an entire story. This is one of those times. For years, perhaps, the situation appeared ordinary. Anyone observing from the outside would likely have overlooked it completely. Yet beneath that ordinary appearance, something deeper was steadily taking shape. The person you love noticed details others ignored. They recognized patterns hidden within timing. They observed small occurrences that seemed insignificant until they began forming a larger picture. Every clue pointed toward a truth that had not yet revealed itself. The power of this revelation lies in the fact that it connects directly to something you have felt all along. Have you ever sensed an answer before you could logically explain it? Have you ever known something was important without understanding why? That is exactly what has been happening. Your intuition recognized that there was more beneath the surface. Even when the circumstances seemed unclear, something inside continued encouraging you to pay attention. Now those feelings are beginning to make sense. The woman at the center of this story is tied to a chapter that was never fully explained. The person you love knows this. They have spent countless hours reflecting on how and when the truth should be shared. Every time they considered speaking openly, new questions appeared. Every time they prepared to explain everything, uncertainty about timing held them back. That hesitation created silence, and silence created mystery. But mysteries are not meant to last forever. Behind the scenes, something extraordinary is taking place. Pieces that once seemed scattered are finding their places. Conversations that appeared unrelated are beginning to connect. Events that once felt random are revealing a deeper purpose. It is as though an unseen puzzle is finally coming together. The person you love can sense this shift. They know the story is approaching an important turning point. What makes it even more fascinating is that the truth is not arriving with dramatic announcements. It is emerging quietly. One realization leads to another. One understanding opens the door to the next. Because of this gradual unfolding, many people would overlook it completely. But you are here because you are meant to notice what others miss. Imagine looking back and realizing every confusing moment served a purpose. Imagine discovering that every unanswered question was leading somewhere meaningful. Imagine understanding that what seemed hidden was simply waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. That moment is drawing near. Although the person you love has not yet spoken every detail aloud, the distance between silence and truth grows smaller each day. There is another important lesson within all of this. Not everything that remains hidden carries a negative meaning. Sometimes people protect information because the story itself is still developing. Sometimes they remain quiet because the full picture has not yet emerged. Sometimes they wait because timing has the power to change everything. Right now, timing is working in your favor. Events are moving forward. Answers are moving closer. Understanding is expanding. The chapter that once felt sealed shut is beginning to open. And when it does, you may discover that reality is more meaningful, more surprising, and more unforgettable than you ever expected. A shift is already underway. The silence that once protected this story is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Each passing day brings another realization, another missing piece, another reason why the truth cannot remain hidden forever. Deep down, the person you love feels it. They know clarity is approaching. Remember this: some of life's greatest revelations do not arrive with noise or spectacle. They appear quietly, piece by piece, until suddenly everything makes sense. That is exactly what is happening now. The story is not moving toward confusion. It is moving toward understanding. It is not moving toward uncertainty. It is moving toward clarity, and very soon, the picture that has remained hidden for so long may finally be seen in its entirety. The connection surrounding this woman continues to grow stronger with each passing day. What once appeared distant and uncertain is becoming clearer, more defined, and increasingly impossible to overlook. Every new realization adds another layer of understanding, bringing the story closer to a moment that could change everything. Stay with this message until the very end. What lies ahead may be one of the most important discoveries of this entire journey. The next stage of this story begins to reveal why this hidden truth became so significant to the person you love. It will uncover why they carried this understanding in silence for so long, and why the revelation approaching now may become one of the most unforgettable moments in everything that has unfolded so far. The signs are gathering. The pieces are finding their place. The answers are moving closer, and in many ways, the story is only beginning. A powerful realization is approaching, one capable of transforming everything you believed you understood. The person you love has carried this private knowledge for so long that it has become woven into the very fabric of the story itself. What once seemed insignificant slowly evolved into something impossible to dismiss. What once appeared to be a minor detail has become the key to understanding the entire mystery. Every great story reaches a point where scattered fragments begin to connect. Separate paths merge. Unanswered questions start revealing their purpose. Events that once seemed unrelated suddenly align. That moment is drawing near. The truth connected to this woman no longer exists as an isolated piece of information. It now appears linked to everything that came before it. Every unexplained feeling, every strange coincidence, every lingering question seems to point toward the same destination. The person you love never imagined this situation would become so meaningful. In the beginning, it seemed simple enough to understand and easy enough to leave behind. Yet the deeper they looked, the more they discovered another layer hidden beneath the surface. It was a layer few people noticed, a layer filled with answers no one thought to seek. And once that layer became visible, everything changed. Curiosity transformed into understanding. Uncertainty slowly became awareness. Questions began leading toward clarity. What makes this chapter especially remarkable is that the truth may not remain hidden much longer. Subtle shifts are already taking place. New insights are appearing. Pieces that once seemed disconnected are beginning to fit together naturally. The person you love can feel this movement. They sense that the season of silence is approaching its end. Think about the times life surprised you when you least expected it. Think about the answers that arrived only after you stopped chasing them. Often the most meaningful discoveries come quietly, without warning. That is exactly the energy surrounding this story. The revelation is not rushing forward. It is unfolding steadily, becoming more visible with every passing day. Because it has taken so much time to develop, its impact may be far greater than anyone anticipated. There is something unique about truths that emerge slowly. They carry depth. They arrive with perspective. They bring understanding that could never exist without patience. That is why this story feels different. Nothing about it has been rushed. Everything has been unfolding at the pace required for its deeper meaning to emerge. The person you love has reached a point where remaining silent feels more difficult than speaking. Not because anyone is forcing them to reveal anything. Not because they feel pressured. Simply because clarity naturally seeks expression. As understanding grows, the desire to share it grows as well. As the picture becomes complete, silence becomes harder to maintain, and that is precisely where things stand now. Imagine discovering that the mystery was never about confusion. Imagine realizing that the hidden truth was leading toward growth, insight, and a greater understanding of everything that happened. Imagine learning that every unusual feeling, every unanswered question, and every moment of uncertainty was guiding you toward this exact point. That possibility is much closer than it appears. The answers are closer. The understanding is closer. The revelation is closer. The story now stands on the edge of an entirely new chapter. A chapter where silence begins giving way to truth. A chapter where hidden pieces reveal why they mattered. A chapter where the connection involving this woman becomes impossible to ignore. The person you love has been carrying something meaningful in private. Yet the moment approaches when the reason behind that silence may finally be understood. As the story continues, the mystery itself moves closer to the center of attention. More pieces begin falling into place. More connections reveal themselves. And the reason this woman became such an important part of the story may emerge in a way nobody anticipated. The answers are advancing. The truth is approaching. And perhaps the most memorable chapter of all still lies ahead. The story has now reached a stage few ever expect. What once seemed distant is moving nearer. What once remained hidden is becoming visible. The truth the person you love has quietly carried about this woman is no longer just a mystery. It is becoming a revelation. For a long time, this situation existed in the background, influencing events without drawing attention to itself. Most people would have overlooked it completely. Most would have ignored the signs and moved on. But this story was never ordinary. There was always something deeper waiting beneath the surface, and now that deeper layer is beginning to show its significance. Perhaps the most surprising part is not what remained private, but why it remained private. The person you love recognized something others could not yet see. They noticed a connection that was still taking shape. They found meaning where others saw coincidence. They recognized importance where others saw routine events. That understanding changed everything. It caused them to pause. It encouraged reflection. It showed them that some truths require time before they are ready to be shared. Consider all the questions that never seemed to find answers. Consider every moment when you felt there had to be more than what was visible. Consider every instinct that told you something important remained unsaid. Those feelings were not meaningless. They were guiding you toward this chapter. They were preparing you for the realization that is now approaching. What if this hidden truth was never meant to create separation? What if it was quietly preparing the way for deeper understanding? What if the silence itself served a purpose? These questions reveal why this story feels so powerful. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are not about uncovering something completely new. Sometimes they come from finally understanding what was present all along. The person you love now stands at the edge of a profound realization. Every observation, every memory, every unanswered question is beginning to form a complete picture. The picture is becoming clearer. The meaning is becoming stronger. The story is becoming impossible to ignore. There is an unmistakable sense that something is shifting. A chapter left unfinished for so long is moving toward completion. A mystery wrapped in silence is moving toward clarity. A truth once protected is moving toward revelation. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that the answer may be far more positive than anyone expected. The story may hold deeper meaning than anyone imagined. The connection involving this woman may reveal lessons, insights, and understanding that simply could not be seen while the pieces remained scattered. That is why patience mattered. That is why silence mattered. That is why every step of this journey mattered. Imagine looking back and realizing every clue pointed here. Imagine discovering that every unanswered question served a purpose. Imagine understanding that the truth needed time to develop so that when it finally arrived, everything would make sense. That possibility has never been closer. A new layer of the mystery is unfolding now. The hidden connection grows stronger, the private truth becomes clearer, and the reason this woman became such a significant part of the story may soon emerge in a way that changes everything you thought you knew. The picture is becoming sharper. The answers are drawing near, and the journey is moving steadily toward a revelation that may remain with you for a very long time. The person you love has spent countless hours reflecting on what they have discovered. They revisited memories, reconsidered conversations, and searched for understanding in places others never thought to look. Through that process, one realization became impossible to ignore. The story involving this woman was never as simple as it seemed. Beneath the surface was a connection that grew stronger every time it was examined. At first, they doubted their own conclusions. They questioned whether the patterns they noticed truly meant something. They wondered whether certain moments carried significance or were simply coincidences. But the same signs continued appearing. The same questions continued returning. The same clues continued pointing in the same direction. Eventually, the evidence became too strong to dismiss. And once that happened, everything began to change. And this is where everything begins to change. When a truth can no longer remain hidden, it naturally starts moving toward the light. What once seemed uncertain begins to reveal its meaning. Stay with this message until the end. Something important is unfolding. There is a strong sense that this story is approaching a turning point. The person you love may not have every answer yet, but they are closer to understanding than ever before. With each passing day, another piece falls into place, and the larger picture becomes clearer. What if the private truth was never meant to stay hidden forever? What if the silence existed because the story needed time to develop before it could be understood? What if the answer waiting at the end of this journey carries far more meaning than anyone expected? Some truths reveal themselves quickly, others require time. The ones that take longer often leave the deepest impact because they arrive with understanding, perspective, and purpose. That may be exactly what is happening here. Imagine reaching a moment when every unanswered question finally begins to make sense. Imagine looking back and realizing the clues were present all along. Imagine understanding why patience was chosen over immediate explanations. That moment may be much closer than it seems. The private truth connected to this woman is becoming harder to keep hidden because the story itself is entering a new stage. The connections are growing stronger. The meaning behind events is becoming clearer. What once felt uncertain is beginning to reveal its direction. One thing has become impossible to ignore. The mystery is moving toward understanding. The silence is moving toward truth. And the person you love is moving toward a realization that could change the way this story is remembered. Another important piece of the puzzle is beginning to emerge. The hidden connection is becoming easier to recognize, and the reason this woman became such an important part of the story may soon come into view. A powerful chapter is unfolding. The mystery surrounding this private understanding has reached a point where every clue seems more meaningful than before. The person you love has carried something connected to this woman for a long time, but the silence surrounding it is no longer as strong as it once was. The barriers are weakening. The answers are beginning to appear. And what comes next may become one of the most surprising moments of this journey. Truth has a remarkable nature. It can remain hidden for years, yet once it begins revealing itself, everything suddenly appears connected. That is exactly what is happening now. Events that once seemed unrelated are forming a pattern. Questions that once had no answers are beginning to point in the same direction. For a long time, The person you love believed important pieces were still missing. That belief encouraged patience and silence. But now something has changed. The pieces are beginning to fit together. The structure of the story is becoming visible. The purpose behind the mystery is starting to reveal itself. Often, life's most important answers are hidden inside ordinary moments. A simple conversation, a brief encounter, or a memory that seemed insignificant at the time can later reveal unexpected meaning. This story carries that same feeling. What once appeared ordinary may prove to be one of the most meaningful parts of the entire journey. The person you love is beginning to understand that the private truth was never separate from the larger story. It was connected to something much bigger all along. Every clue pointed toward it. Every unanswered question pointed toward it. And now, the picture is becoming clear enough to recognize. That is why everything feels different. That is why the mystery feels closer to resolution. There are moments when people suddenly understand something that had been in front of them all along. They do not discover something new. They finally recognize the meaning of what was already there. Those realizations can change everything. The person you love may be standing very close to such a moment. Imagine discovering that every delay served a purpose. Imagine realizing that every unanswered question was leading toward a greater understanding. Imagine learning that the hidden truth was simply waiting for the right moment to be fully understood. That possibility grows stronger every day. The connection involving this woman continues to gain significance. What once seemed like a small chapter now feels connected to the entire story. What once appeared uncertain now feels meaningful. What once remained hidden now feels ready to emerge. The change is happening quietly, but it is happening. There is also a feeling that the next revelation may unlock more than one answer at a time. Sometimes a single realization explains many questions. Sometimes one truth brings clarity to several mysteries at once. That is why this moment matters. The story stands at the edge of a breakthrough. The person you love may soon discover that what they have carried privately is no longer a mystery. It is becoming understanding, and once understanding becomes complete, sharing it becomes easier than keeping it hidden. As this chapter comes to a close, one thing is clear. The story is moving toward clarity. The hidden truth is becoming stronger. The puzzle is nearing completion, and the private connection involving this woman is closer to revelation than ever before. The next chapter moves even closer to the heart of the answer. More of the mystery will unfold. More hidden meaning will become visible, and the reason this truth remained private for so long may finally begin revealing itself in a way that changes the entire story forever.